Post 1. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and for most of my adult life, I've worked at my paternal grandfather's company. It's not a flashy corporation, but it's solid. Manufacturing, with steady clients, decent pay, and the kind of place people stay for decades. My grandfather started it, my dad became one of the managers, and I came up through the ranks, working my butt off in nearly every department. The catch? I'm from my dad's first marriage. My half-sister, the child of his second marriage, is the golden one. She's 3 years younger than me, prettier in that polished way, and was raised to believe she's destined to take over the business. Where I was taught to work hard, she was taught to expect everything to be handed to her. Still, I believed if I worked twice as hard, if I proved myself in every role, I'd earn respect on my own terms. And for a while, it seemed to be working. I started as a receptionist, moved into HR, later into operations. My reviews were glowing. Clients asked for me by name. I often worked late nights while my half-sister waltzed in at 10 a.m. with a Starbucks and left at 3 p.m. for self-care. When my grandfather announced he was fully retiring, a promotion opened up. Head of operations. I'd been doing most of the work already. My managers knew it. My father knew it. Even my grandfather, before stepping back, told me he trusted me to keep the place steady. For the first time, I felt like maybe all those years of grinding would pay off. But if you've ever grown up in a family with a golden child, you know how quickly reality can turn. A few weeks before the promotion was due to be announced, strange things started happening. HR pulled me aside about an anonymous complaint saying I was volatile under pressure. Then another said I was disorganized with deadlines. I'd never missed a deadline in my life. Suddenly, a rumor popped up that I was distracted by personal issues. None of it was true, but I could feel the ground shifting under me. Then, one of my coworkers, who I trust, quietly told me they overheard my half-sister bragging in the break room. She was laughing about how easy it was to plant doubts, how Daddy will believe me no matter what. My stomach dropped. It made too much sense. I wanted to march into HR and confront everything. But around that same time, I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned, but it was very much wanted. My partner and I were overjoyed. And suddenly, fighting over a title felt smaller. I thought, let them play their games. I'm going to have a baby. When my family found out, the attention swung my way like a spotlight. For once, it wasn't about my half-sister. My aunts fussed over me. Cousins brought little gifts. Even my dad seemed genuinely proud. My half-sister's face, though, she looked like she'd bitten into a lemon. I thought maybe this was the balance I'd been waiting for. Maybe if I stepped back, went on maternity leave, and focused on my baby, things would settle. I could always come back and rebuild. But I didn't realize then that stepping back wouldn't calm the storm. It would light the match for something even uglier. Because the golden child doesn't tolerate being outshined, not by work ethic, and certainly not by a baby. So, am I the jerk for walking away from the fight for my promotion when I found out I was pregnant, even though my half-sister clearly sabotaged me? First comment, NTA. Family golden children will burn the whole house down rather than let someone else succeed. You protected your peace and your baby. Second comment, NTA. It sounds like you've been carrying the company for years. Walking away isn't weakness. It's choosing what actually matters. Update 1. I thought stepping back after the promotion fiasco would bring some peace. I figured my half-sister got what she wanted, the title, the shiny office, the attention. Meanwhile, I had something more important to focus on, my pregnancy. But instead of calming down, she escalated. At first, the shift in family dynamics was almost funny. When I told everyone I was expecting, the response was overwhelming. My grandfather, who almost never gets emotional, teared up. My dad beamed like he hadn't in years. Even relatives who usually stayed on the sidelines came forward with congratulations, little gifts, and offers to help. For once, I wasn't the overlooked one. I was the one being celebrated. And my half-sister hated it. The first cracks showed during a Sunday dinner at my dad and stepmom's house. Everyone was asking me questions about how I was feeling, if I'd picked out names, if I needed anything. My half-sister kept trying to redirect the conversation back to herself, her new role at the company, how busy she was, how stressful it was being a leader. At one point, she actually cut me off mid-sentence to talk about a supply chain issue. I tried to brush it off, but I saw the look in her eyes. Pure jealousy. Then little digs started slipping in. It must be nice to have an excuse not to work late. Wow, you get all this attention just for doing what women have done for centuries. You're lucky Grandpa likes babies, otherwise nobody would care. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, but then a coworker from the company reached out privately. He said he overheard her in the break room again, ranting to another manager. Apparently, she was saying things like, "She can't even handle her own life. How is she going to handle a child?" And, "Maybe it's better if the baby ends up with someone more stable." That last line made my blood run cold. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was just her being dramatic. But it stuck in my head. Why would she say that? Why would she even suggest the idea that my baby could end up with someone else? Meanwhile, I had my own suspicions about the promotion mess. I started quietly pulling together evidence. Emails mysteriously lost, HR complaints that matched her handwriting style, texts she'd sent me that contradicted what she told others. I didn't take it to HR yet. I wasn't ready for another fight, but I kept building a file. At the same time, I tried to keep enjoying my pregnancy. My partner and I started buying baby clothes, setting up a nursery, and imagining life with our child. For a little while, I let myself believe the family drama was just background noise. But then came the blow-up. At another family dinner, my stepmom was passing around ultrasound photos I'd left on the counter. Everyone cooed and fussed over them. My half-sister slammed her fork down and snapped, "Why does everything have to be about her? She's not special." The room went dead quiet. She doubled down. "She's unstable. She's dramatic. She couldn't even handle a promotion without falling apart, and now you're all acting like she's some saint because she's having a baby? What about me? I'm the one actually keeping the company running." I tried to keep calm, but my voice shook when I said, "This isn't about you. This is about my child." Her response, "Maybe that baby would be better off with me." Gasps. Actual gasps around the table. My dad looked like he'd been slapped. My grandfather stood up and told her to leave. She stormed out, muttering about how nobody appreciates her. The silence afterward was suffocating. Nobody knew what to say. My stepmom tried to smooth things over, saying she was just emotional. But I sat there, my hands on my stomach, feeling more protective than I ever had in my life. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just sibling rivalry anymore. This was obsession, and it terrified me. First comment, NTA. The second she said the baby would be better off with her, she crossed into dangerous territory. Keep documenting everything. Second comment, NTA. Your half-sister isn't just jealous, she's unstable. You're right to be scared. Protect yourself and your child first. Update 2. After the dinner blow-up, I thought my family would finally see what I've seen for years. That my half-sister is entitled, jealous, and downright unstable. For a little while, it seemed like that was the case. My dad called me afterward and said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Everyone knows she went too far." My grandfather even dropped off a little bassinet at my apartment, saying, "This is for my great-grandchild, not for arguments." But if I've learned anything, it's that golden children never stay in the hot seat for long. The shift started slowly. At first, relatives whispered that she was just stressed from her promotion. My stepmom excused it as hormones, which made no sense considering she wasn't the one who was pregnant. Then I started hearing, through the grapevine, that some of the same people who gasped at the dinner table were now saying things like, "Well, maybe she had a point." Meanwhile, I kept quietly building my evidence. I knew in my bones she had sabotaged my promotion, but suspicion wasn't enough. I went through emails, copied strange HR complaints, and compiled texts she had sent me that contradicted what she claimed. One of the strongest pieces came from a coworker who admitted she pressured them into writing a statement that I was erratic. He said he regretted it, but was afraid to lose his job. I didn't take it to HR yet, not until I was ready. But every day, my half-sister got bolder. She started showing up at my apartment uninvited, dropping off baby clothes with tags still on, saying things like, "You'll thank me when I'm the one raising this little one." I stopped answering the door. My partner told me I needed to set boundaries. But it's hard to set boundaries with someone who thinks rules don't apply to her. The final straw came during a family lunch my grandfather insisted on hosting. I almost didn't go, but he begged, saying he wanted everyone at the same table, one last time before the baby comes. I walked in and immediately felt the tension. My half-sister was sitting at his right hand, smiling sweetly like nothing had happened. As soon as I sat down, she launched into a story about how exhausted she was running operations and how she was basically keeping the company afloat single-handedly. A few relatives nodded along, clearly trying to placate her. Halfway through the meal, she looked straight at me and said, "I just want what's best for the baby. Everyone knows you've been struggling emotionally. Maybe you should think about letting someone more stable step in." I nearly dropped my fork. Nobody gasped this time. In fact, my stepmom muttered something like, "She does have a point." My grandfather cleared his throat, but he didn't say anything to stop her. I left the table shaking. On the way out, I heard her call after me, "Don't be selfish, sis. This is about the child, not your pride." That was when I knew I couldn't keep waiting. The family wasn't going to protect me. If anything, they were starting to buy into her twisted narrative. That night, I called my lawyer. I laid out everything: the promotion sabotage, the harassment, the statements about my baby. She listened carefully, then said, "We'll handle this on two fronts. One for the career sabotage, and one to protect your child." For the first time in months, I felt like I had someone on my side who couldn't be swayed by my half-sister's crocodile tears. I don't know how far she's willing to go, but I do know this: I'm done waiting for her to stop. I'm going to stop her myself. First comment, NTA. The fact that the family is starting to nod along to her insanity is terrifying. Lawyer up was the smartest move. Second comment, NTA. This isn't sibling rivalry anymore. She's escalating, and the family is enabling her. Protect yourself and that baby first. Update 3. I knew things were going to come to a head eventually, but I didn't expect it to happen so fast. My stepmom invited me to a small family dinner last weekend. She said she wanted to make peace, that it was just going to be her, my dad, my grandfather, my half-sister, and me. Against my better judgment, I went. From the moment I walked in, I regretted it. My half-sister was already there, sitting at the table like she owned the place. She greeted me with a sugary, "Hi, sis," that made my skin crawl. My dad tried to break the tension by asking about the nursery, and for a few minutes, things were civil. We talked about paint colors and baby clothes, and I thought maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't end in disaster. Then dessert came out. And with it, the explosion. My half-sister cleared her throat dramatically and said, "I've been thinking a lot about the baby." My stomach dropped. She went on, "I really believe I'm in a better position to raise a child right now. I have the stability, the leadership experience, the support. You're emotional, overwhelmed, and honestly, you've always struggled under pressure. I think it's time we had an honest conversation about what's best for the baby." I froze. My fork clattered against the plate. Before I could say anything, my stepmom jumped in. Not to shut her down, but to say, "Well, she does have some points." I looked at my dad, praying he'd defend me. Instead, he looked away. My grandfather tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. I started crying. Right there at the table. I said, "Are you really suggesting I hand over my child to her?" My half-sister smirked. "I'm not saying it has to be permanent, but maybe at least consider shared custody. You know, until you're on your feet." Shared custody. With my own half-sister, who had sabotaged my career and smeared me for months. I stood up and said, "This is insane. You're insane." My voice cracked, but I didn't care. I told them all, I will never, ever hand over my baby. Not to her, not to anyone. And the fact that you're even entertaining this makes me sick. I stormed out, shaking and sobbing. My partner met me at the door when I got home, and I collapsed into his arms. He kept saying, "We'll fix this. We'll protect you and the baby." That night, I emailed my lawyer everything, every word from dinner, every suggestion that I share custody, every time my family defended her instead of me. She wrote back within the hour, "We're moving forward with legal protection. Enough is enough." I realized then that my family isn't just blind, they're complicit. They've let her run the show for so long that they can't see how unhinged she's become. And if I keep relying on them, I'll lose more than just a promotion. I could lose my child. That's not happening. First comment, NTA. The fact that they even suggested shared custody with your half-sister shows how warped this has gotten. Lawyer up, keep records, and protect yourself. Second comment, NTA. Your family failed you. Your half-sister is unstable and obsessed, and they're enabling it. You're right to draw the line here. Update 4. The morning after that family dinner, I woke up with a pit in my stomach. I kept replaying my stepmom's voice in my head, the way she said my half-sister had some points. I couldn't believe they'd let her talk about taking my baby like it was a realistic option. I called my lawyer first thing. She told me point blank, "You need to stop treating this as family drama. This is a legal matter now." That flipped a switch in me. We laid everything out. The smear campaign at work? I had the paper trail. The anonymous HR complaints that matched my half-sister's phrasing, the coworker who admitted she pressured him into lying, and the emails that mysteriously disappeared from my account, but had her fingerprints all over them. I'd also saved texts where she bragged about finally getting the recognition she deserved. My lawyer smiled grimly and said, "This is workplace sabotage, and they know it." Then came the bigger piece, the baby. I showed her the notes I'd written after every unsettling comment. Maybe the baby would be better off with me. Don't be selfish, sis. This is about the child. I told her about her showing up at my apartment with baby clothes and saying I'd thank her when she's the one raising it. And now I had what she said at dinner, suggestions of shared custody, with my own family nodding along. My lawyer told me we'd pursue 2 tracks at once: a settlement from the company for the career sabotage, and a restraining order to protect me and my child. When I told my partner, he hugged me and said, "Finally, no more letting her walk over you." The fallout started almost immediately. When word got back to my half-sister that I was taking legal steps, she blew up my phone with messages. "How could you do this to family? You're turning everyone against me. If you think you can cut me out of the baby's life, you're wrong." I didn't respond to a single one. A few days later, my dad called. He sounded tired, almost defeated. He said, "Can't we settle this privately? Do you really need to involve lawyers?" I told him, "Dad, you sat there while she said she deserved my baby. You didn't stop her. This isn't private anymore." He went quiet, then mumbled something about keeping the peace. That told me everything I needed to know. The restraining order process was nerve-wracking. Standing in front of a judge, pregnant, while my half-sister glared at me from across the room, was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But my lawyer laid it out clearly. The harassment, the obsession, the repeated attempts to undermine me. When the judge granted a temporary restraining order pending a full hearing, I cried right there in court. It felt like the first real win I'd had in months. Meanwhile, my lawyer sent a demand letter to the company. Between the evidence I had and the fact that my half-sister was still bragging about her victory online, it was airtight. My dad looked stricken when he realized the company might have to pay me out. But honestly, that's not my problem. They let her run wild, and now they're going to pay for it. I don't know what hurts more, my half-sister's obsession, or the way my family stood by her. But at this point, I can't waste energy on that. My priority is protecting my baby. And I'll do whatever it takes. First comment, NTA. You're absolutely right. This stopped being family drama a long time ago. Getting a lawyer and a restraining order is exactly what you needed. Second comment, NTA. Your family failed you, but the law won't. Keep every record and let your lawyer keep swinging. You're protecting yourself and your child. Update 5. It's been a whirlwind few weeks, but things are finally starting to settle. Not because the family drama stopped, but because I forced it to stop. The company blinked first. After my lawyer sent the demand letter, with all the evidence of the smear campaign, they knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. The anonymous complaints that magically matched my half-sister's writing style, the coworker who admitted she pressured him into lying, the mysteriously deleted emails that somehow resurfaced in her inbox. It was a mountain of proof. They offered me a settlement. It wasn't just a token payout either. It was a sum that acknowledged how badly my career had been sabotaged, how my promotion was stolen out from under me. I signed the papers with shaking hands, realizing I was finally free from the company that had been my family's anchor for generations. When my dad found out, he called me. His voice was trembling with anger. He accused me of bleeding the family dry, of punishing Grandpa's legacy. I told him calmly, "No, Dad. I'm protecting myself and my baby. If you let half-sister run wild, that's on you, not me." He hung up without another word. Meanwhile, the restraining order hearing happened. My half-sister showed up with crocodile tears, claiming she was just worried for the baby. My lawyer tore her apart. She produced the text where my half-sister said I'd thank her when she's the one raising it. She read out the quotes from family dinners, where she suggested shared custody. She even showed the judge the baby clothes my half-sister dropped off at my apartment, unasked for, tagged with notes that said, "For when they're mine." The judge didn't hesitate. The temporary restraining order was made permanent. My half-sister is legally barred from contacting me or coming anywhere near my child. When the ruling was read, my half-sister hissed at me across the courtroom. "You think this is over? You'll regret this." I didn't even flinch. For once, she couldn't touch me. The fallout with the rest of the family has been messy. My stepmom called me cruel for putting my sister through the humiliation of court. Aunts and cousins posted cryptic Facebook statuses about family betrayal, but not one of them was in that courtroom. Not one of them saw the judge's face when he said her behavior was dangerous. My grandfather has been the only one who's reached out sincerely. He called me and said, "You did the right thing. I let things slide too long, but I'm glad you're standing up for yourself." That meant more to me than any check ever could. For the first time in months, I can breathe. My baby is safe. My career isn't tied to a company where my half-sister holds sway. And I know, deep down, that no matter how much the rest of the family gossips, I made the right call. My half-sister can stew in her bitterness. She wanted my job, my reputation, and even my baby. She got none of it. I, on the other hand, have everything that matters. First comment, NTA. You forced accountability on both fronts, the company and your sister. Protecting your baby and reclaiming your career is the real win. Second comment, NTA. Your dad and stepmom will never admit it, but you did what they were too cowardly to do. Stand up to your half-sister's obsession. Final update. It's been almost a year since all of this happened, and life looks completely different now. After the settlement with my grandfather's company, I decided I was done tying my future to my family's business. It was painful to walk away from a place where I'd spent most of my adult life, but it also felt like shedding chains. I updated my resume, leaned on contacts I'd made over the years, and applied to companies that valued results over family politics. I landed a role at a competitor, one that pays nearly double what I earned before. The irony isn't lost on me. The same relatives who accused me of bleeding the family dry now know that I'm thriving more outside of their orbit than I ever could have under their control. I'm excelling too. My new boss actually respects my ideas. Coworkers trust me, and there's no half-sister lurking around to sabotage me. As for my baby, she's healthy, happy, and the absolute light of my life. The first time I held her, I promised her she'd never have to grow up wondering if she was enough. Every late-night feeding, every diaper change, every tiny laugh has been proof that I made the right choices. The restraining order remains in place, and knowing there's a legal wall between us and my half-sister lets me sleep at night. My half-sister, meanwhile, has unraveled. She kept her position at the company, but word of the sabotage spread further than she realized. Other managers don't trust her, and employees avoid her. According to one former coworker who still messages me, she spends more time complaining that she should have been in charge by now than actually doing her job. She's isolated, even within the business she fought so hard to control. The family still whispers. My stepmom won't speak to me at all. My dad reaches out occasionally, but it's always half-hearted, like he's torn between defending his younger daughter and knowing deep down she went too far. My aunts post Facebook statuses about lost bonds and forgiveness, but none of them showed up when I needed support. The truth is, they're background noise now. My grandfather has kept his word. He calls me regularly, checks in on the baby, and even admitted that letting my half-sister run unchecked for so long was one of his biggest regrets. I thought indulging her would make her easier to deal with, he said. Instead, it made her believe she was untouchable. Hearing him say that out loud was the closest thing to validation I've ever gotten from that side of the family. Do I still feel sad sometimes? Yes. It hurts knowing that the people who were supposed to protect me chose convenience over truth. It hurts knowing my daughter won't have the kind of extended family I once imagined for her. But then, I remember those dinners, those cruel comments, and the way my half-sister said she deserved my child, and the sadness fades into relief. Relief that I broke the cycle. Relief that my daughter will grow up in a home where she's cherished, not compared. Relief that I proved, to myself most of all, that I didn't need their approval to build a good life. So here's where things stand. I'm free of the family business, thriving in a new career, raising a healthy baby, and surrounded by people who actually care about me. My half-sister is legally barred from coming near us and is watching her reputation crumble. The family members who defended her are left with nothing but their gossip. I used to think losing that promotion was the worst thing that could happen to me. Now I realize it was the best. It forced me out of a toxic system and into a future I actually want. My baby will never know how close we came to losing peace, and that's exactly how it should be.